Captain Marcus Reynolds stood on the bridge of the GSS Intrepid, staring out at the vast expanse of space before him. He'd spent the better part of 2 decades patrolling the fringes of human-controlled space, defending Earth's colonies from pirates, raiders, and the occasional hostile alien species. But this mission was different. For the first time, he wouldn't be working alone. The Galactic Council, the governing body that oversaw relations between the various spacefaring races, had decided it was time for humans and Elorians to start working together. As 2 of the most powerful and influential species in the galaxy, they believed a partnership between them could help maintain peace and stability. And so, they had assigned Marcus a new partner, an Elorian named Xyloth. Marcus had never worked with an Elorian before. He knew very little about them, other than that they were a proud, warrior race with a strict code of honor. They had a reputation for being fierce fighters and brilliant strategists, but also for being aloof and difficult to work with. Marcus couldn't help but feel a sense of apprehension as he waited for his new partner to arrive. The door to the bridge hissed open, and Marcus turned to see a tall, muscular figure striding towards him. Xyloth was an imposing sight, with dark green scales covering his body and piercing yellow eyes that seemed to bore into Marcus's soul. He wore a form-fitting black uniform that accentuated his powerful physique, and a long, serrated blade hung from his belt. "Captain Reynolds," Xyloth said, his voice a deep, guttural rumble. "I am Commander Xyloth of the Elorian Defense Force. I have been assigned as your partner for this mission." Marcus nodded, extending his hand in greeting. "Welcome aboard the Intrepid, Commander. I look forward to working with you." Xyloth stared at Marcus's hand for a moment, then grasped it firmly. His grip was strong, almost crushing, and Marcus had to fight the urge to wince. "I must admit, Captain, I have my doubts about this partnership," Xyloth said, releasing Marcus's hand. "Humans are still relative newcomers to the galactic stage. I am not convinced that you are ready for the challenges that lie ahead." Marcus bristled at the comment, but kept his composure. "I assure you, Commander, my crew and I are more than capable of handling whatever comes our way. We may be new to the galaxy, but we're quick learners and we don't back down from a fight." Xyloth's eyes narrowed, and for a moment Marcus thought he might challenge him. But then the Elorian nodded, a hint of respect flickering in his gaze. "We shall see, Captain. We shall see." As Xyloth turned and strode off the bridge, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that this partnership was going to be a bumpy ride. The Elorians were known for their arrogance and their belief in their own superiority. Getting them to see humans as equals would be a challenge, but it was one Marcus was determined to overcome. The Intrepid's mission was to establish a joint security outpost on the edge of human and Elorian space, a buffer zone to help prevent conflicts between the 2 species' expanding territories. It was a crucial first step in building a lasting alliance, and Marcus knew that failure was not an option. Over the next few days, as the Intrepid journeyed towards the outpost site, Marcus and Xyloth worked to familiarize themselves with each other's capabilities and protocols. It quickly became clear that they had very different approaches to command. Xyloth was a strict disciplinarian, expecting unquestioning obedience from his subordinates. He ran his security teams with an iron fist, drilling them mercilessly and tolerating no mistakes. Marcus, on the other hand, favored a more collaborative approach. He encouraged his crew to think for themselves, to offer suggestions and solutions rather than simply following orders. This difference in leadership styles led to several clashes between the 2 commanders. Xyloth saw Marcus's approach as weak and ineffective, while Marcus viewed Xyloth's methods as needlessly harsh and demoralizing. They argued frequently, their raised voices echoing through the ship's corridors. Despite their differences, however, Marcus and Xyloth soon found themselves facing a shared challenge. As they neared the outpost site, they received a distress call from a nearby human colony. The colony had come under attack by an unknown alien force, and was in desperate need of assistance. Marcus immediately ordered the Intrepid to change course and head for the colony. Xyloth, however, was hesitant. Our mission is to establish the outpost, he said. We cannot afford to be delayed by this distraction. Marcus shook his head. Those are our people down there, Commander. We have a duty to protect them. The outpost can wait. Xylotha's scales flickered with irritation, but he didn't argue further. As the Intrepid raced towards the besieged colony, Marcus could only hope that they would arrive in time. And he couldn't shake the feeling that this attack was only the beginning of something much larger and more dangerous. As they approached the colony, the scale of the attack became clear. The settlement was in ruins, buildings smoldering and debris scattered everywhere. The Intrepid sensors detected several alien ships in orbit, still pounding the colony with laser fire. Marcus wasted no time in ordering a counterattack. The Intrepid's fighters launched, engaging the alien ships in a fierce dogfight. On the ground, Marcus and Xyloth led a team of Marines to secure the colony and evacuate any survivors. As they fought their way through the ruined streets, Marcus couldn't help but be impressed by Xylotha's combat skills. The Elorian moved with a speed and grace that seemed almost supernatural, his blade flashing as he cut down enemy after enemy. But even Xylotha's prowess wasn't enough to prevent tragedy. As they neared the colony's central shelter, they found it had already been breached. Bodies littered the ground, both human and alien. And among them, Marcus spotted a familiar face, his old friend and mentor, Admiral Grayson. Marcus knelt beside the fallen admiral, his heart heavy with grief. Grayson had been the one who had encouraged him to join the space fleet, who had taught him everything he knew about leadership and duty. To see him lying here, his life cut short by this senseless attack, it was almost too much to bear. Xyloth placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder, his expression solemn. I am sorry for your loss, Captain. He was a brave warrior. Marcus nodded, blinking back tears. He was more than that. He was a good man. And he deserved better than this. As they secured the rest of the colony and tended to the wounded, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that this attack was just the beginning. The aliens who had done this were still out there, and they needed to be stopped. But as he looked around at the devastation and the grief-stricken faces of the survivors, Marcus realized that stopping them would require more than just military might. It would require unity, understanding, and a willingness to put aside old differences and work together towards a common goal. He glanced at Xyloth, who was helping an injured human to their feet. The Elorian had proven himself today, not just as a warrior but as a compassionate being. Perhaps there was hope for their partnership after all. Marcus knew that the road ahead would be long and difficult. But with allies like Xyloth by his side, he felt a newfound sense of determination. They would find a way to protect both their peoples, to build a future of peace and cooperation. And they would start by finding out who was behind this attack, and bringing them to justice. No matter the cost. The journey to the Vreketh stronghold was tense and quiet. In the halls of the Intrepid, human and Elorian crew members prepared for the coming battle, checking and rechecking their equipment, running through drills and simulations. But beneath the professional veneer, Marcus could sense the undercurrent of fear and uncertainty. They were heading into the unknown, facing an enemy that had haunted the nightmares of the Elorians for centuries. An enemy that, until now, the humans hadn't even known existed. It was a sobering thought, and Marcus found himself spending long hours in his quarters, poring over every scrap of information they had on the Vreketh, looking for some weakness, some advantage they could exploit. It was during one of these late-night research sessions that his door chimed. "Come in," he called, rubbing his eyes. To his surprise, it was Xyloth who entered. The Elorian looked as tired as Marcus felt, his scales dull and his eyes shadowed. "Captain," he said, inclining his head in greeting. "I apologize for the intrusion." Marcus waved off the apology. "No need, Commander. What's on your mind?" Xyloth hesitated, seeming to struggle with his words. I feel I owe you an explanation. About the Vreketh, and my people's history with them." Marcus leaned back in his chair, gesturing for Xyloth to continue. The Elorian began to pace, his claws clicking against the deck. When the Vreketh first attacked us, centuries ago, we were unprepared. We had never faced an enemy like them before. They struck without warning, without mercy. Entire worlds fell before we even understood what was happening. He paused, his eyes distant. My ancestors fought in those first battles. They saw the horrors the Vreketh inflicted firsthand. The stories of that time, they are not pleasant. Marcus nodded, a chill running down his spine. He had seen some of those stories himself, in the ancient Elorian texts Xyloth had shown him. Tales of entire cities turned to ash, of civilians tortured and experimented on, of brave warriors overwhelmed by the Vreketh's relentless onslaught. But you did beat them, in the end, Marcus said. You drove them back. Xyloth smiled grimly. Yes, we did. But the cost, it changed us, as a people. Made us harder, more ruthless. More determined to never again be caught unprepared. He stopped pacing, turning to face Marcus directly. That's why some of my people have been, reluctant to trust yours. They fear that you are not ready for this fight. That you will be a liability, rather than an asset. Marcus bristled slightly, but he couldn't deny the truth in Xyloth's words. The humans were newcomers to the galactic stage, and their military, while advanced, was untested against a threat like the Vreketh. But you don't believe that, Marcus said. It wasn't a question. Xyloth shook his head. No. I have seen your people's strength, your courage. I believe that together, we have a chance to end this threat, once and for all. He extended his hand, a human gesture of friendship and trust. After a moment, Marcus stood and grasped it firmly. Then let's make sure we don't waste that chance, Marcus said. We need to get our people working together, truly together. No more suspicion, no more division. One team, one fight. Xyloth nodded, his grip tightening. Agreed. I will speak with my warriors, make sure they understand what is at stake. As the Elorian turned to leave, Marcus called after him. Xyloth, thank you. For trusting me, and my people. I know it isn't easy. Xyloth paused at the door, looking back over his shoulder. Easy? No. But necessary. We are in this together, Captain. Until the end. In the days that followed, Marcus and Xyloth worked tirelessly to forge their disparate crews into a cohesive unit. They led joint training exercises, encouraging the humans and Elorians to work side by side. They shared meals together, swapping stories and slowly learning to understand each other's cultures and ways of thinking. It wasn't always smooth sailing. There were still moments of friction, of misunderstanding. But slowly, surely, the walls began to come down. The humans learned to appreciate the Elorians' discipline and dedication, while the Elorians came to respect the humans' ingenuity and adaptability. And at the center of it all were Marcus and Xyloth, leading by example. They spent long hours in each other's company, planning strategies and contingencies. But they also took the time to simply talk, to learn about each other's lives and experiences. Marcus learned that Xyloth came from a long line of warriors, that he had earned his command through years of hard-fought battles and unwavering loyalty. Xyloth, in turn, heard stories of Marcus's childhood on Earth, of the events that had driven him to join the space fleet and dedicate his life to protecting others. In each other, they found not just allies, but friends. Brothers in arms, united by a common cause and a shared resolve. And as the fleets drew ever closer to their destination, as the tension and anticipation mounted, that bond would be put to the ultimate test. For in the heart of the Vreketh stronghold, amidst the fire and the chaos of battle, they would need to trust each other absolutely. Their lives, and the fate of the galaxy, would depend on it. The Vreketh stronghold loomed before them, a twisted mass of dark metal and pulsing energy. It hung in space like a malevolent spider, its spindly arms reaching out to grasp and crush any who dared approach. On the bridge of the Intrepid, Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. He had faced many enemies in his time, but none had exuded such an aura of pure, primal dread. Beside him, Xyloth stood tense and ready, his claws flexing unconsciously. "This is it," Marcus said, his voice steady despite the fear churning in his gut. "The moment of truth." Xyloth nodded, his eyes never leaving the view screen. "Indeed. Today, we end this nightmare, one way or another." As if in response to their words, the Vreketh stronghold suddenly came to life. Energy pulsed along its surface, and a swarm of small, dart-like fighters burst from its hangars, speeding towards the Allied fleet. "Here they come," Marcus said, his hand tightening on the arm of his chair. "All ships, engage at will. Let's show them what we're made of." The battle was joined in a blaze of laser fire and exploding ships. The Vreketh fighters were fast and maneuverable, darting around the larger human Nalorian vessels like angry hornets. But the Allied ships gave as good as they got, their weapons cutting swathes through the enemy ranks. At the heart of the battle, the Intrepid danced and wove, its guns blazing. Marcus directed the fight with cool precision, his orders crisp and clear over the calm beside him. Xyloth coordinated the Alorian ships, his deep voice cutting through the chaos. But for all their skill and determination, the tide of the battle soon began to turn against them. The Vreketh were simply too numerous, their ships too fast and too heavily armed. One by one, the Allied vessels fell, torn apart by the relentless onslaught. On the Intrepid's bridge, the mood was grim. Damage reports flooded in from all decks, and the casualty lists grew longer by the minute. Marcus felt a growing sense of desperation as he watched his fleet being decimated. "We need a new plan," he said, his mind racing. "We can't win this fight head-on. We need to find a weakness, some way to." And then it hit him. A crazy, desperate idea, but one that just might work. He turned to Xyloth, his eyes blazing. "The stronghold," he said. "That's their command center, their source of power. If we can take that out." Xyloth frowned, his scales rippling thoughtfully. "It would cripple them, yes. But Marcus, that thing is a fortress. Our weapons can barely scratch its surface." Marcus grinned, a fierce, determined expression. "Then we don't use weapons. We use their own strength against them." He brought up a schematic of the stronghold, pointing to a large, pulsing node at its center. "There. That's their main reactor. If we can overload it, cause a feedback loop." Xyloth's eyes widened. "It would tear the stronghold apart from within." "But Marcus, to get close enough to do that, we'd have to fly straight into the heart of their defenses. It's suicide." Marcus met his gaze, his resolve unwavering. "Maybe. But it's our only chance. And I can't think of anyone I'd rather have at my side for a suicide mission." For a long moment, Xyloth stared at him, his expression unreadable. Then, slowly, he grinned, a fierce, predatory expression. "Nor can I, my friend. Let's do this." The plan was quickly relayed to the remaining ships. It was a desperate gamble, but one they were all willing to take. As one, the fleet turned towards the stronghold, weapons blazing, drawing the Vreketh's fire. At the head of the formation, the Intrepid charged forward, Marcus and Xyloth at the helm. They wove through the hail of enemy fire, their shields straining under the onslaught. Around them, Allied ships fell left and right, sacrificing themselves to clear a path. Closer and closer they came, until the stronghold filled their view screen, a looming monstrosity of twisted metal. Its defenses lashed out at them, energy beams and missile barrages that hammered at the Intrepid's failing shields. But they did not falter. With a final, desperate push, they plunged into the heart of the stronghold, racing towards the pulsing reactor at its center. "Now!" Marcus roared, slamming his hand down on the console. The Intrepid's weapons fired, not at the reactor, but at the conduits and relays surrounding it. Feedback surged through the stronghold systems, building and building until the reactor detonated in a blinding flash of light. The explosion ripped through the stronghold, tearing it apart from within. Secondary blasts chained through its structure, turning metal and circuitry into molten slag. And at the heart of the maelstrom, the Intrepid tumbled and spun, its shields gone, its hull battered and scorched. But it was intact, and so were its crew, held safe within its armored shell. On the bridge, Marcus and Xyloth picked themselves up, staring in awe at the vista of destruction before them. The Vreketh stronghold was gone, reduced to an expanding cloud of debris. And beyond it, the remaining Vreketh ships were in disarray, their formation shattered, their resolve broken. A cheer went up from the Intrepid's crew, a roar of triumph and relief. It was echoed across the calm as the news spread to the other ships. Against all odds, they had done it. They had struck a blow against the Vreketh that would resound across the galaxy. Marcus turned to Xyloth, a broad grin splitting his face. The Elorian was smiling too, a rare sight. Not bad for a bunch of humans and lizards, eh? Xyloth chuckled, a deep, rumbling sound. Not bad at all, my friend. Not bad at all. As the allied ships regrouped, as the cheers and congratulations flowed, Marcus felt a sense of pride and accomplishment unlike any he had known before. They had faced the darkness and emerged victorious, not just as humans or Elorians, but as something more. As allies. As friends. As brothers and sisters in arms, united by a bond that could never be broken. And as he looked out at the stars, at the infinite possibilities that lay before them, Marcus knew that this was only the beginning. The Vreketh had been defeated, but there would be other threats, other challenges to face. But whatever came their way, they would face it together. Humans and Elorians, side by side, ready to defend their shared galaxy. Ready to build a future of peace and unity, a future where the old divisions and prejudices were nothing more than distant memories. In the aftermath of the battle, a strange sort of calm descended. The wreckage of the Vreketh stronghold drifted in space, a silent testament to the ferocity of the conflict that had raged. The Allied ships, battered but victorious, began the slow process of repairs and recovery. On the Intrepid, Marcus and Xyloth oversaw the efforts, coordinating with the other captains to ensure everyone had what they needed. It was a daunting task, nearly every ship had sustained damage, and the casualty reports were grim reading. But there was also a sense of purpose, of unity. The old rivalries and suspicions between human and Elorian seemed to have evaporated in the heat of battle, replaced by a newfound respect and camaraderie. As the days turned into weeks, as the fleet slowly made its way back towards friendly space, Marcus found himself reflecting on all that had happened. The emergence of the Vreketh, the desperate struggle to unite against them, the sacrifices made and the bonds forged in the crucible of war. It had been a time of terror and tragedy, yes. But also a time of heroism, of growth, of change. The galaxy they were returning to was not the same one they had left. The old certainties, the old barriers, had been swept away. In their place was something new, something fragile and precious. A chance for a new beginning. One evening, as the Intrepid drifted through the tranquil emptiness of interstellar space, Marcus found Xyloth in the observation lounge. The Elorian was standing by the large viewport, gazing out at the stars, his posture pensive. Marcus joined him, following his gaze. For a long moment, they stood in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. Then, Xyloth spoke. "Do you remember what I said to you when we first met? That I doubted your people were ready for the challenges ahead?" Marcus nodded, a slight smile touching his lips. "I remember. Seems like a lifetime ago now." Xyloth turned to face him, his expression serious. "I was wrong, Marcus. About your people, and about you. You've shown a strength, a resilience, that I never expected. You've earned my respect, and my friendship." He extended his hand, and Marcus grasped it firmly. "The feeling is mutual, Xyloth. I couldn't have asked for a better partner, or a truer friend. They turned back to the stars, their reflection superimposed over the endless expanse. Two figures, one human, one Elorian, united in purpose and understanding. So what happens now? Marcus asked after a while. Where do we go from here? Xyloth shrugged, a very human gesture he seemed to have picked up. Forward, I suppose. There's still much work to be done. The Vreketh may be defeated, but their legacy will linger. There will be scars to heal, trust to rebuild. Marcus nodded, his expression thoughtful. And beyond that? Do you think this alliance, this new understanding between our peoples, can last? Xyloth was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft but certain. I think it must. We've seen what we can achieve when we stand together. The alternative is too terrible to contemplate. We have a chance here, Marcus. A chance to build something better, something stronger. A future where humans and Elorians, and all the other races of the galaxy, can live and work and thrive side by side. He turned to Marcus, his eyes blazing with a fierce hope. It won't be easy. There will be obstacles, setbacks. Old habits and prejudices die hard. But I believe it can be done. I believe in us, in what we've forged here. Do you? Marcus met his gaze, and in that moment, he felt a certainty, a conviction, that ran soul deep. Yes, he said simply. I do. And there it was. A promise, an oath, sealed in the quiet of the observation lounge, witnessed by the eternal stars. A commitment to a future they would build together, step by step, day by day. The war was over. The real work, the work of peace, of unity, of understanding, was just beginning. But they would face it as they had faced everything else. Together. As Marcus and Xyloth left the lounge, shoulder to shoulder, hearts aligned, a new era dawned. An era of hope, of possibility, of change. An era where anything was possible, as long as they had the courage to reach for it. As long as they had each other. The end.